So when it comes to the cold roll components, I like to make life simple for myself. And you'll remember that when we copied when we were doing the main portal spans, we detailed one bay and then copied them down. I like to do a similar thing with the purlins and the side rails. So I will remove all but one row of the side rails, like so. And I will just detail this one level. So go to my library, and under the steel specialized tools under cold roll systems, we have the Metsec library. Again, there are a lot of other cold roll manufacturers available in here, so it's down to your preference, but they all behave in a very similar way. So we will just load in the default parameters for that component, pick the column, pick the rail, middle button to complete, and you can see that we've got a cleat, we've got the weld, all the sorts of things you expect to find with a component. If I double click on here, we'll bring up the dialog box and I'll show you a couple of things. The first one is this cleat. You'll notice that's a Metsec off-the-shelf sort of welded cleat. We can change those cleats to bolted. So if we change that to bolted, you'll see that we get a Metsec bolted type cleat. Or if we change it back to welded, we can change the profile. So if you prefer to make your own cleats, if we change that specification to a flat by a 10 thick flat by 130 wide, we'll get a 10 by 130 flat. Now that's how I'm going to leave it, but how you make the cleats is up to you. The other thing you can do with the gable end is specify a gable end projection. So if we go into overhang dim gables only, specify a projection of 250 mil, that will project the end rails 250 past the center of the column. Okay. And now we can store that as our spec. We can go down this row of rails and put it in. You'll notice here that where I pick two rails, it's going to put the sleeve on automatically. These components tend to comply to manufacturer's literature as much as possible. So the fewer inputs you put into it, the better the results will be. So I'm just going to run down this elevation and complete those components like so. Again, you'll see gable overhang has been detected, the 250 projection has been placed. I can select all those rails now that the connections are done. I can use the copy special linear command, copy vertically 1500 spacings 4 times, like so. Okay, so that's that elevation of cold roll detailed. Again, I can do the same thing with the purlins. So if I remove all the purlins and just leave the one row, I can do it by window selection too. So select all of those and all of those, delete them. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. So we've got one row of purlins. Let's detail those fully and then we can copy it down. And we're just going to use the same component. It's a very versatile component for cold rolled. There we go. You see the sleeve going in again, like so. And then the gable. Okay, again, I need to copy this back down the slope. So I'm going to select all 4 purlins, like so. Copy special linear command, first point, and then the vector, then the spacing. And this time spacing was 1500. This time I'm going to make 8 copies. We've probably got one too many. Yeah. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that row of purlins. Okay, wonderful. You can see we've got all of the connections. Now, often with cold roll systems, you'll need to brace them with stays. Now you can manage that within this component. Again, sort of suggest it's sort of hinting at its flexibility, its versatility. So I can put stays on these components as well, like so. Okay, and I can just reproduce that down this row, and I can generally get them at the end of the haunch as well. So I can select those, do it there. That's going to the haunch by default, but I can change that so that it goes to the rafter instead. And we'll just pop one on the end as well. So that one is going to be on the left side. Is that going to the haunch or the rafter? No, the haunch, good. And then this one will be on the right hand side, like so. Okay. Next, we will look at the eaves beams. As I said before, the column probably doesn't project enough to form a decent connection. So let's find which column that is. Let's go to the component. Let's form a Metsec eaves beam connection there. And you can see, yeah, as I suspected, it's not projecting up enough. So we can take care of that. So first, let's configure this connection. So the eaves beam plate should be 10 thick. Let's go for that. The connecting profile, we'll leave it as an angle, but we can pick it out of the library. So let's go into our RSAs and let's say it's a 165 by 8 profile. Let's go to here. Let's say that's okay. We're happy with that. Okay, that's fine. Yep, good with that. Happy with all of that. Let's change the bolts to countersunk. So 8.8 countersunk bolts like so, and you'll see that the packer plate has been included automatically. Let's just take a 3D view of that. Now that leg passes over the leg, that's good. So what we can do with this eaves component now to make the column projection suitable for the connection of that is we can project the top of the column above the rafter. So if we take a quick measurement from there to the top of that, we can see that that is 140 mil there or thereabouts, and we can project it above to make sure that we've got enough profile to weld that to. Okay, the other thing we're missing here is the gable overhang, which you can't control within the component, but it's very straightforward. Take this point and we can move that in the X plane 250 mil out, like so, just to get that component to comply. And we'll move that other end 250 like so. So obviously we've got to project the rest of the columns up as well, so we can open that component and then we can go around and we can select each of these haunch connections like so, using the control command for multiple selection, and then simply modify, and then all the tops of the columns are projecting suitably. And then back to the component, and then we can apply the rest of these Metsec connections, the eaves beam connections, like so. So column, eaves beam, column, eaves beam, and column, eaves beam. Okay. Now, the final step in the cold roll system is to put in the anti-sag struts, and that again is very straightforward. So go to your component, your manufacturer's component library, and we'll do the side rails first. So we'll go for Metsec side rail support. Again, I don't need to tinker with this. I can just start the command, and you need to pick the two parts, the two main members, which are dictating the span of the bay, and then the cold rolled members in that bay, middle button, and it will put in the appropriate components. So you can see we've got bolted side rail supports all the way up, and then we've got it's detecting there's an eaves beam, putting the appropriate strut in. So this component will also detect the span. So if this span is over 6 meters, it will put a double row in, again compliant with domestic standards. But we can force that. So if we want the double struts, we can specify double struts. But I tend to leave it alone. We can also use this component to put the struts in, the diagonal tie wires by default. So if I say I want diagonal tie wires in bay 1, you can see bay 1 is the bottom bay, and that's put the struts in for me. Okay, so we'll leave it like so, and we'll just run down the rest of the building and complete that. So column, all of the side rail components completed. The purlins have their own component for this. So Metsec standard anti-sag bay for the purlins. Again, it works very similarly to the side rails. So pick the two rafters and then pick all of the purlin members, including the eaves beam for that bay. Middle button to complete. And this time we've got two rows with eaves struts down at the bottom. Again, I can use this to place a diagonal tie wire at bay 2. So that's the second bay up, not including the eaves. And we'll leave it like so, leave it like that. That's good enough for me. So I'll just finish this off, go down the rest of the building and include those. Like so. Refresh the view, get rid of the top hats, and there we go. We've got our cold rolled system. So again, I can shortcut detailing of the other half of the building. So if I take a couple of seconds just to select all of the main members in the cold rolled, the cladding support system, like so, and then the purlins. Again, using the control, well, that's unfortunate. However, we do have a tip for this. So if I use this select previous objects command, I can re-highlight everything that I just sipped on, which is very handy tool. There we go, shortcut all of that. See, even the professionals make mistakes. Now I can copy special, mirror that about the middle of the building, and then I've got all of my side rails and purlins on the other side of the building, and we'll let that finish like so. Okay, there we go, my completed building.